No one inside the Conde mansion expected a child to shatter the night, but when the door swung open and the billionaire Jabari Conde saw the boy's eyes, his heart stopped cold. Rain pounded like fists against the marble steps as 10-year-old Tavio stood drenched, trembling, clutching a torn satchel to his chest. His voice shook as he whispered the words that froze Jabari in place. "Sir, they told me my mom was taken inside your mansion. Please, please help me find her." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. Those eyes, wide, desperate, painfully familiar. Jabari had seen them once before, many years ago. In a mirror, in a past he had buried. Lightning flashed, illuminating Tavio's thin frame, and the fear carved across his face. Servants rushed forward to shove the boy away, but Jabari lifted a hand, unable to tear his gaze from the child, who looked like a ghost from another life. And with one look, he knew tonight would change everything. If you're watching this, tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is right now. And if you enjoy gripping African folktale dramas like this, feel free to subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. The rain had begun to soften, but inside the mansion, tension thickened like smoke. Tavio's bare feet left small wet prints on the polished marble floor as he stood just inside the doorway, shivering. Jabari signaled for the guards to step back. His voice, usually sharp and commanding, came out quieter than anyone had ever heard. "Tell me again," Jabari said, eyes locked on the child. "Who told you your mother came here?" Tavio swallowed hard drops of rain sliding down his cheeks like tears. "A woman at the market, sir. She said she saw my mom get into a black car. She thought the driver belonged to someone rich. And everyone knows this is the biggest mansion around, so..." He lifted his gaze, pleading, "I had to come. I had nowhere else to go." The servants exchanged uneasy glances. A child, wandering alone in a storm, to a billionaire's mansion. It was unthinkable. But Jabari heard something else, something beneath the words. That echo in the boy's voice, something he couldn't shake. He cleared his throat, forcing composure. "What's your mother's name, Maremba?" the boy whispered. The name slashed through Jabari's composure like a blade. His fingers tightened slightly at his side. He had heard that name only once in the past decade, spoken softly in the memories he avoided at all cost. He could almost hear her laugh again, almost see her standing in the sun with a basket of mangoes. And yet he said nothing, offering no reaction. No one in this house could see his mask slip. Tavio continued, his voice trembling. "She was supposed to come home after delivering vegetables. She never did. People said a woman matching her clothes was seen crying before entering that car. I followed that lead here." A servant, a tall man named Musa, scoffed. "Boy, do you know how many cars this estate owns. Anyone could have mistaken Musa." Jabari's tone dropped like thunder. "Enough." The servant bowed his head instantly. Jabari turned back to the boy. "Why would anyone bring your mother into this mansion? Do you know who she was delivering vegetables to?" Tavio shook his head helplessly. "No, sir. She just said she got a big order from someone important. I followed her cart earlier today. She joked that maybe she'd finally earn enough to fix the roof." His voice broke at the edges. "She never came back." He wiped his face with the back of his hand. It was then Jabari noticed the small woven bracelet around the boy's wrist. Frayed old, clearly handmade. His breath hitched. He had seen one just like it once, given by a woman whose soft hands he still remembered. But he forced the memories down again. "Bring him a blanket," Jabari ordered. The servants hesitated. They had never seen the billionaire so gentle. But before anyone could move, Tavio took a small step forward. "Please, sir. You must believe me. Someone brought my mom here." Jabari knelt slightly to meet the boy's eyes. They were warm brown, deep frightened, and shining with determination. And again, painfully familiar. "I believe you," Jabari said softly. Tavio's lips parted in relief. For a moment he seemed like a child allowed to breathe again. But the moment shattered when a woman's voice pierced the hall. "What is going on here?" Zahara appeared at the top of the staircase, wrapped in a silk house robe, her expression sharp as glass. She descended slowly, each step deliberate. Her gaze fell on Tavio with instant disdain. "Why," she hissed, "is a filthy street child standing in my hallway at this hour?" The servant stiffened. Musa stepped forward, as if relieved to finally have support. "Madam, we were just about to escort him out." "No," Jabari cut in louder this time. "He stays until I say otherwise." Zahara's eyes widened. "He stays," she forced a laugh. "Jabari, darling, you cannot be serious. Look at him. He's soaked dirty, possibly carrying diseases. He's a child, Jabari snapped, surprising everyone, including himself. Tavio flinched, but didn't step back. Zahara's gaze sharpened. She studied Jabari's face for a moment, then turned back to the boy with calculating coldness. So she said slowly, "Why are you here, little one?" Tavio gathered courage. "I'm looking for my mother. She went missing today. People said she was seen entering a rich person's car. I think she was brought here." Zahara raised an eyebrow. "A wild assumption. Do you know how many wealthy estates sit within this district?" Tavio shook his head. "But this is the only one with a black car that has a broken left taillight." The room froze. Zahara's expression faltered. Musa's throat bobbed. Even Jabari blinked. The boy noticed their silence. "I saw it outside," he added softly. Jabari exhaled slowly, pressing a hand to his chin. "That car, the one used by security for errands, why would it have been anywhere near the market today, and why hadn't anyone reported its use to him?" "Musa," he said without looking away from Tavio, who used the security car today. Musa stiffened. I believe Madame Zahara requested silence," Zahara snapped. But it was too late. Jabari looked up at her eyes, narrowing. "Zahara, why did you use the security car today?" She forced a smile. "I needed to pick up a parcel. Nothing unusual." "What parcel?" Jabari pressed. Zahara hesitated. It was barely a second, but it was enough for Tavio to sense something. Children who grew up poor learned how to read faces better than most adults. "She's lying," Tavio whispered quietly, his voice quivering with both fear and defiance. Zahara whirled around. "What did you say?" Tavio backed up a step, but Jabari moved slightly in front of him. "Zahara," Jabari said, "we will discuss this after I help the boy." "Help the boy?" Zahara repeated, disbelief rising into anger. "Jabari, you cannot honestly think I said later." Zahara clenched her jaw, fury simmering in her eyes. But she didn't push further, not yet. She spun around and strode down the hall, her heels clicking violently against the floor. Once she was gone, Tavio tugged gently on Jabari's sleeve. "Sir, please. I feel like she knows something." She reacted when I mentioned the car. Jabari studied the hallway where Zahara had vanished. He had seen the flicker in her eyes, the flash of panic. Something wasn't right. But before he could speak, Tavio's knees buckled slightly. Jabari caught him by the shoulders. "You're exhausted," Jabari murmured. "How long have you been searching?" "Since morning," Tavio admitted weakly. "I ran everywhere asking people. I didn't eat. I didn't want to waste time." The boy's determination pulled at something deep within Jabari, something raw and uncomfortably familiar. "Sit," Jabari instructed. He guided Tavio to a velvet armchair, far too big for him. A servant rushed forward with a blanket and placed it gently over the boy's shoulders. Jabari crouched down again. "Tell me more about your mother." Tavio's face softened at the mention. "She's kind, sir. She works hard. She laughs a lot even when she's tired. She always tells me we'll be okay as long as we stay together." His voice cracked. "Please help me find her. She's all I have." Jabari's heart tightened until it almost hurt. The boy's words echoed ones he had once heard from another woman long ago. He closed his eyes for a moment, steadying himself. "I will help you," he said finally. "You have my word." Tavio looked up, hope flickering like a candle. "Thank you, sir." But deep inside, Jabari felt a storm beginning to gather, one far more dangerous than the one raging outside. Because if the past he feared was finally resurfacing, then the truth would demand a price. And tonight, that truth was walking on small, trembling feet right beside him. The storm outside had quieted to a distant murmur, but inside the mansion, a new storm had begun to rise, one that had nothing to do with rain. The servants whispered uneasily among themselves as Jabari motioned for them to leave the hall. Only 2 lamps remained lit, casting warm light across the room, illuminating the strange pair now standing at its center, a billionaire fighting a memory he wished to forget, and a shivering boy clutching hope like it was the last thing he owned. Jabari took a slow breath. "Tavio, I need you to tell me everything you can remember about the moment your mother disappeared." Tavio nodded, pulling the blanket tighter around his thin shoulders. "Yes, sir." He took a seat on the edge of the armchair legs, dangling far above the floor. His small fingers twisted nervously as he tried to gather his thoughts. "This morning," he began softly, "she told me she got a delivery order from someone important. She said the price was double what she usually earns, so she couldn't refuse." He swallowed. "She told me to stay home while she went to the market for the pickup. I tried to follow her without her knowing." "You followed her?" Jabari raised an eyebrow. Tavio nodded. She always tries to protect me, but I didn't want her to work alone in the rain. I hid behind the stalls when she talked to people. There was something painfully mature in the boy's tone, something no child his age should ever need. She walked toward the main market gate when a black car stopped near her cart, Tavio continued. The driver talked to her. She looked confused then. Scared. After that, she got inside. Did she say anything? Did she call out for help? Jabari asked. Tavio shook his head slowly. No, sir. But she looked like she didn't want to go. Jabari's jaw tightened. He could feel pieces of a terrible puzzle sliding into place. A car matching his security vehicle, a woman who resembled someone from his past, and Zahara's nervous twitch when confronted about it. What happened after the car left? Jabari asked. Tavio lowered his gaze. I ran after it, but I couldn't keep up. Someone at the market said they saw it heading toward the wealthy estates. And you came here, Jabari murmured, looking at the soaked shoes the boy still wore. Yes, Tavio whispered. I walked from the market. I didn't know which house was yours. I just tried the biggest one first. A sad smile tugged at Jabari's lips. You're brave, Tavio. The boy shook his head vigorously. No, sir. I'm scared. I just want my mom. I want her to be safe. Jabari felt a heavy ache building in his chest. Children weren't supposed to sound like that. They weren't supposed to already understand fear as deeply as adults. He stood and paced slowly across the hall trying to think. Something about the timing felt too precise, too intentional. Zahara had used the security car today. Zahara had been tense. Zahara had tried to eject the boy quickly, and Zahara knew nothing about Maremba unless... His thoughts spiraled, but a soft voice broke through. Sir Tavio asked gently, Do you know my mom? Jabari froze mid-step. For a long moment, he didn't turn around. His heartbeat thudded painfully like something pressing against his ribs from the inside. Memories once he had locked away for years finally pushed through the cracks. A dusty village, a shy smile. A woman with warm brown eyes who sold fruits with a laugh that made his heart trip over itself. But he forced the memory back into its cage. After several seconds, he turned face composed. I knew someone once. A long time ago. But I don't know if it's the same woman. Tavio watched him with an intensity that made Jabari uncomfortable. There was a quiet intelligence in the boy's gaze, a kind that shouldn't exist in a child shaped by poverty, but born from resilience. What was her name? He asked carefully. Jabari exhaled. Her name was Maremba. Tavio's eyes widened and his breathing hitched. Then maybe. No, Jabari interrupted, quickly lifting a hand. There are many people with that name. The boy's shoulders sagged, disappointment flickering across his face like a candle struggling against wind. Jabari turned away again, not because he didn't care, but because the truth scared him more than anything. The boy looked too much like him. Too much. A ripple of footsteps echoed from the upper floor. Zahara reappeared, now dressed in a shimmering gold robe that seemed more armor than clothing. Her expression was icy, her chin lifted high. I'd like to speak with you, she said to Jabari, her tone clipped. Not now, Jabari said without turning, her eyes narrowed. Yes, now. Before Jabari could reply, Tavio spoke up softly. Ma'am, did you see my mom Zahara? Turned slowly, her gaze sliding over the boy, as if he were something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Why would I know anything about a vegetable seller? Tavio's small hands clenched. Because you used the black car today. The air snapped tight. Jabari turned sharply toward his wife. Is that true? Zahara's face twitched too quick for most to notice, but not quick enough for him. I already told you, she said, forcing calm. I picked up a parcel, and the taillight broke yesterday. I was going to report it. Why didn't you? Jabari pressed. Zahara's teeth clicked together. Because I forgot. Must everything become an interrogation? But her voice trembled at the edges. Tavio swallowed. My mom wears a silver bracelet with letters on it. It's very old. Someone said they saw her holding it tightly before she got into the car. Jabari stiffened. Zahara's eyes flicked quickly, too quickly toward Tavio's wrist. The woven bracelet. What letters? She asked, trying to sound indifferent. J.K. Tavio said softly. Zahara inhaled sharply before she could stop herself. It was small, barely audible, but enough. Jabari saw it. Every twitch. Every quake beneath her perfectly polished exterior. Zahara, he said quietly, what exactly did you do today? Her fists tightened at her sides. I told you. What? Did you? Do? The words cracked like a whip. Zahara's mask broke for 1 second, one raw, unguarded second before she slammed it back into place. But that was enough for Jabari to understand that something was deeply dangerously wrong. She stepped backward. I will not be interrogated in front of a child. You'll answer. Jabari hissed because a woman's life may depend on it. The servants who had been pretending not to listen from the doorway froze like statues. Tavio stood suddenly. Sir, maybe she's hiding my mom. Please, Zahara snapped. Quiet, boy, the shout echoed sharply, and Tavio flinched. Jabari moved instantly. You will not raise your voice at him. Zahara's lips parted in disbelief. You're defending him, a stranger. He's a child, Jabari said through clenched teeth. A child whose mother vanished under circumstances connected to this house. Silence fell deep, suffocating. Zahara's expression twisted desperation creeping in. Jabari, you don't understand. That woman, she's not just anyone. But she stopped mid-sentence, realizing she had said too much. Jabari's eyes turned cold. You know who she is. Zahara's face paled. She struggled for a lie, but found none ready. I need to think. She turned abruptly, storming back toward the staircase. But Jabari called out sharply, Zahara, don't leave this house. She paused at the first step, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Tavio whispered, voice small but firm, Sir, she knows something. Jabari didn't respond right away. He watched Zahara disappear down the hall, the echoes of her footsteps fading into silence. Then he turned to the boy, this fragile, rain-soaked child, who had walked miles through a storm, chasing a hope too thin to hold. We will find your mother, he said quietly, but with a depth that made Tavio's eyes fill with cautious relief. No matter what it takes. And though he didn't voice the fear buried deep inside him, one truth had begun to gnaw at Jabari's soul. If Miremba truly was the woman he once loved, then whatever happened tonight was no coincidence. And the boy standing before him might be far more than a stranger. The heavy silence that followed felt like a thick blanket draped over the mansion, suffocating and cold. The storm outside had reduced to a faint drizzle, but inside, emotions raged with a violence that thunder could envy. Jabari remained still for several seconds, staring at the hallway Zahara had disappeared into. Every instinct, every sharpened business sense, honed through years of reading people, whispered the same thing: Zahara was hiding something. He finally turned back to Tavio, whose small frame trembled more from fear than cold. You said your mother's bracelet had the letters JK on it, Jabari said tightly. Tavio nodded. Mama always said it belonged to someone she cared about long ago. She never explained more, just kept it safe. Jabari's chest tightened. He knew exactly what bracelet that was. He had given it to Miremba 12 years ago, back when he was still a poor young trader dreaming of a better life. Back when he had promised her the world. Back when he left without saying goodbye. He swallowed the guilt like poison. You said she never told you what the letters meant, he asked softly. No, sir. She just smiled when I asked. Jabari looked away, rubbing his temple. His past long buried was clawing itself back to life through a child's trembling voice. The servants watched from a distance, unsure whether to approach or flee. Their master's expression was unreadable, not anger, not fear, but something darker, something personal. Jabari straightened. We're going to search this house. Tavio blinked. The whole thing, yes, Jabari said firmly. If your mother was brought here today, there must be traces. Someone saw her. Someone heard something. We'll find where she went. Tavio stood immediately, determination flickering in his eyes like a spark. I'll help. Jabari hesitated for a moment. This was no place for a child, but the stubbornness in the boy's gaze mirrored someone he once knew. Someone who never let fear bend her. All right, Jabari said. Stay close to me. He turned to Musa, who stiffened at being singled out. Gather every staff member still awake. No one leaves the mansion. No one returns to their quarters. We are finding this woman. Yes, sir, Musa shouted, eager to redeem himself. Within minutes, the hall filled with anxious servants. Some wore nightclothes beneath hastily thrown on jackets. Others rubbed sleep from their eyes. All stood stiffly as Jabari stepped in front of them, Tavio beside him, like a tiny shadow. I'll make this very simple, Jabari said, voice low and controlled. A woman may have been brought into this house today. Her name is Miremba. She is missing. And unless someone here gives me a reason to believe otherwise, I will assume she is still somewhere on this estate. The servants exchanged panicked glances. Jabari's gaze hardened. If you know anything at all, you will speak now. Silence. A minute passed. Then another. The only sound was the soft ticking of the grandfather clock. Jabari's jaw clenched. Very well. We do this the hard way. He pointed down the east corridor. We start with that wing. The mansion was enormous, a labyrinth of polished halls, guest rooms, sitting rooms, and storage spaces. As they walked, Tavio's eyes widened at the sheer scale of wealth around him. Glittering chandeliers, portraits in gilded frames, velvet curtains so thick they swallowed sound. But none of it impressed him. He searched every inch of the hallway with desperate focus. Sir, he said after a moment, pointing to the floor. What's that? Jabari followed his gaze. Near the baseboard where the carpet met the wall was a faint smudge, brownish small, but not dirt, blood, dried but recent. Jabari's breath caught. Musa, he barked. The servant rushed over. Yes, sir. Who cleaned this hallway today? Musa hesitated. Madame Zahara instructed the staff not to touch this corridor, said she wanted privacy here. Jabari's eyes narrowed dangerously. Privacy? For what I don't know, sir. Tavio crouched beside the stain. His small fingers hovered over it without touching. This looks like Mama's blood, he whispered. She cut her hand yesterday slicing vegetables. The cut wouldn't stop bleeding. The words hit Jabari like a fist to the chest. He stood abruptly. Search every room connected to this corridor, now. Servants scattered like startled birds. They checked the first room, a guest lounge filled with velvet sofas and untouched tea sets. Empty. The second room, an office Zahara rarely used. Empty. The third, an indoor balcony overlooking the garden. Nothing. Tavio began trembling again, fear creeping back in. What if she's not here anymore? She is, Jabari said with absolute certainty. She has to be. The fourth door was locked. Jabari stepped forward. Whose room is this? Musa swallowed. Madame Zahara's private relaxation room. She doesn't let anyone in. Jabari's lungs filled with a cold, sharp anger. Open it! I don't have the key, sir. Then break it. Musa hesitated only a moment before ramming his shoulder into the door. The wooden frame cracked. 2 more hits, and it burst open. The room inside was dim lit only by a small lamp on a side table. The air smelled faintly of perfume mixed with something metallic. Something wrong. Tavio rushed in first and froze. Sir, he whispered. Look, on the floor near a chaise lounge lay a folded cloth. Jabari approached it slowly, his steps heavy. He unfolded it. A simple piece of fabric, with the name Maremba embroidered gently along the edge. Tavio's knees buckled. That's hers, he cried, voice breaking. She made that herself. It's hers. She was here. Jabari closed his eyes, pain slicing through him. Memories flooded back so vividly he almost staggered. He could see Maremba laughing as she worked with thread and cloth in her small village home. He remembered teasing her that she embroidered everything, including his old jacket. He remembered her smiling shyly. He remembered leaving her. He opened his eyes again, cold fury building. Musa, he said sharply, searched the entire room. But even as Musa obeyed, Tavio crept toward the far corner, drawn by something unseen. Jabari followed him confused, until Tavio pointed at faint marks on the wooden floor, scuff marks as though something heavy had been dragged. A chair, Musa guessed. No, Tavio whispered. A person. The marks led to a hidden door in the corner wall, camouflaged beneath the wallpaper, nearly invisible unless someone knew to look. Jabari stared shocked. Zahara had this installed, Musa nodded nervously. It was done last month. She said she needed a quiet reading room. We didn't question her. Jabari grabbed the handle. Stand back. The door creaked open. Behind it was a narrow passageway descending into darkness. Tavio clutched Jabari's sleeve. She's down there. I feel it. Jabari didn't doubt him. Not anymore. He lifted a lantern from the wall, lit it, and stepped forward. The shadows trembled across stone steps worn by little use. Tavio, he said softly, stay close. But if I tell you to run, you run. Do you understand? Tavio nodded, determination outweighing fear. Together they descended into the hidden belly of the mansion. The deeper they went, the colder the air grew. The faint sound of dripping water echoed somewhere far ahead. The lantern's glow flickered across old crates, dust-covered shelves, and cobwebs. Then they reached the bottom. A narrow hallway stretched before them. And in the stillness so faint they almost missed it, came the sound of breathing. Quick, ragged, weak. Tavio froze. Mama Jabari tightened his grip on the lantern. Someone was down here. Someone who shouldn't be. Tavio Jabari whispered, stay behind me. But the boy stepped forward, voice cracking. Mama, is that you? The breathing shifted, a soft moan. And then, a whisper. "Tavio!" The boy gasped. Jabari felt his heart stop. They weren't imagining it, they had found her. Or what was left of her. The whisper drifted through the cold passageway like a dying ember, soft, trembling, barely alive. Yet it struck Tavio with the force of a lightning bolt. He broke into a shaky run before Jabari could stop him. "Mama, Mama, I'm here, Tavio, wait," Jabari called, lifting the lantern higher as he hurried after him. The dim corridor opened into a small underground storage chamber. Dust-blanketed old furniture stacked against the walls. A single metal chair lay overturned its legs, scraping the stone floor. And there, slumped against a wooden crate, sat a woman, her hair matted, her clothes torn at the sleeve, one hand clutching her ribcage as if every breath stabbed her. Miremba. Even bruised, exhausted and pale, her presence hit Jabari like a ghost resurrected. Tavio fell to his knees beside her. "Mama, Mama, look at me, please." Her eyelids fluttered open. For a moment her gaze seemed unfocused, wandering in the flickering lantern light. Then its sharpened recognition, dawning in tears, slid down the bruised curve of her cheek. "Tavio," she breathed. "My baby, you came." He wrapped his arms around her waist, sobbing into her tattered blouse. "I looked everywhere. I didn't stop. I thought." His voice broke violently. "I thought you were gone." She winced at the sudden movement, but her weak hand rose to stroke his hair. "I'm here, my love. I'm here." Jabari stood frozen a few feet away, his breath trapped somewhere deep in his chest. The lantern's glow trembled in his hand. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. The world around him seemed to blur, until all he saw was her exactly as he remembered, and yet changed by years of struggle. Miremba finally looked up, her gaze landing on him. The moment their eyes met, something shattered. Her breath caught, her body stiffened. The color drained from her face faster than the blood dripping from her scraped wrist. Jabari. His name came out as a broken whisper, half disbelief, half accusation. Jabari swallowed hard. "Miremba, But he didn't know how to finish the sentence. He didn't know whether he was allowed to. Tavio turned, eyes red and swollen. "Sir, you know my mama." The question hung heavily in the cold, underground air. Miremba closed her eyes, pain, emotional, not physical, tightening her exhausted expression. When she opened them again, she looked straight at Jabari, ignoring the throbbing ache in her ribs. Why are you here?" There was no warmth in the question, only hurt. Jabari lowered himself slowly to her level lantern light, casting shadows across old wounds resurfacing. "Your son came to my house searching for you," he said quietly. "He believed you were brought here. He wasn't wrong." Her jaw tightened. "He shouldn't have been wandering alone." "I agree," Jabari replied, "but he's brave. He followed every lead to get to you." Tavio sniffled, trying to wipe his nose with his sleeve. "I didn't want to lose you, Mama. I followed the car. I followed everything." Her grip tightened around him. "My strong boy." Jabari looked around the chamber, the overturned chair, the smears of dirt, the rope frayed on the ground. "Who did this to you?" His voice dropped to a low, dangerous rumble. Miremba didn't answer immediately. Her eyes flicked toward the narrow stairwell behind them, as if expecting someone to appear, as if she feared someone still listening. Jabari followed her gaze, tension climbing up his spine. "Miremba," he said carefully, "you're safe now. Tell me who brought you here." For a long, painful second, she hesitated. Then in a voice barely audible, "Your wife." Tavio froze. Jabari's breath left him in a slow, lethal exhale. "Miremba," he murmured. "What exactly did Zahara do?" Miremba swallowed. "I was delivering vegetables. A car stopped near me. The woman inside asked me questions, too many. About my past. About someone I once knew." Her eyes flicked toward Jabari again, full of memories she clearly didn't want to revisit. "And when I tried to leave, the driver grabbed me. They forced me into the car." Tavio's face twisted with anger. "Why would she do that to you, Mama?" Why? Miremba's fingers trembled as she brushed his cheek. "Because she knows something she shouldn't." Jabari's stomach clenched. "What does she know?" Miremba inhaled shakily, then looked at him with eyes full of 12 years of silence. "She knows you and I were together." Jabari didn't speak. Couldn't. "And she knows," Miremba continued, voice cracking with the weight of truth, "that Tavio is your son." The world stopped. The lantern flickered violently, shadows dancing like restless spirits. Tavio's breath hitched. He looked between them, his mother's trembling confession and Jabari's stunned stillness. "Sir, what does she mean?" The boy whispered, voice hollow with shock. Jabari opened his mouth but no sound came out. His throat felt like it was filled with stone dust. Miremba touched her son's cheek gently. It means, the man standing here is your father. Silence swallowed the chamber whole. Tavio stared at Jabari with wide searching eyes, the same eyes Jabari saw in the mirror every morning. The resemblance was undeniable, painful, beautiful. But Tavio shook his head, suddenly tears spilling. No, that can't be true. He clung to Miremba desperately. Mama, he's a billionaire. He couldn't be. Jabari finally spoke, voice barely more than a breath. Tavio, your mother is telling the truth. The boy froze like he had been struck. Jabari's chest ached as he continued. I met your mother many years ago, before I had money, before this life. I left the village to build something, but I didn't return like I promised. His voice shook. I didn't know she was pregnant. If I had, you would have. What? Miremba whispered bitter. Given up your empire, your perfect life, your perfect wife. Jabari swallowed shame like poison. I would have done something. Anything. His voice cracked. I should have come back, I know that. Tavio's tears flowed freely now. So, all this time, I had a father. Jabari's heart broke. All this time, he whispered, you had me. And I didn't know. The boy didn't move, didn't reach for him, didn't speak. He just stared, hurt, confused, fragile. Miremba shifted, grimacing at the pain in her ribs. Tavio immediately held her more tightly. We need to get her out of here, Jabari said, recovering himself. She needs a doctor. And Zahara must be confronted. At the mention of Zahara, fear flickered in Miremba's eyes. She will hurt him, she whispered. Jabari, she knows he is your son. That's why she took me. She threatened to. Her voice broke. Tavio gasped. She threatened me. Miremba pulled him close. She said she would expose everything and ruin your future, that you would never be safe if the world found out. Jabari's blood ran cold. Zahara had crossed the line into something unforgivable. We're leaving this room, he said firmly. Now. He tried to help Miremba stand. She winced sharply, clutching her side. Careful, Jabari said softly. You may have a fractured rib. Tavio supported her from the other side, whispering encouragements through tears. It's okay, Mama. We're together now. We're safe. But the hope in his voice was fragile. As they climbed the steps slowly, Miremba, leaning on both of them, the tension in Jabari's chest grew. When they reached the top of the hidden stairwell, he paused. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Then a soft creak echoed from the shadows. Jabari tightened his grip on the lantern. Someone was here. Someone waiting. And he already knew who it was. He stepped forward, shielding Miremba and Tavio instinctively. Zahara, he said into the darkness, voice sharp, steady, furious. Come out! Because the reckoning had finally begun. The echo of Jabari's voice rolled through the dim hallway like a threat carried on cold air. The lantern flame quivered, casting long, trembling shadows over the walls. Miremba tightened her arm around Tavio, pulling him instinctively closer as Jabari stepped forward. His broad frame braced, every muscle in his back taut, with a fury he had not unleashed in years. For a moment there was only silence, then heels clicked against marble. Slow, deliberate, unapologetic. Zahara stepped out of the shadows at the far end of the corridor, her gold robe shimmering faintly under the flickering lantern. Her face was still beautiful and composed, but her eyes, sharp and glittering, betrayed a dangerous mixture of anger, fear, and defiance. So she said softly, you found her. Her gaze drifted over Miremba's bruised arms, then down to Tavio, clinging protectively at her side. Something cold and ugly flickered in Zahara's eyes, but her smile remained controlled. I must say, she continued, I underestimated you, Jabari. I didn't expect you to follow the boy all the way down there. Jabari stepped forward, voice low and lethal. Don't pretend this is normal. Don't pretend kidnapping an innocent woman is something we can discuss elegantly in a hallway. Zahara tilted her head. Kidnapping, you say that as if she were a stranger. She is a stranger to you, Jabari snapped. Zahara let out a soft, humorless laugh. Oh no, she's not a stranger. Not anymore. I know exactly who she is. And more importantly, her eyes slid to Tavio. I know who he is. Tavio stiffened. Miremba grabbed his hand, whispering, stay behind me. Jabari's jaw clenched so tightly his teeth ached. Zahara, listen carefully. Your actions tonight are criminal. You endangered a woman, you terrified a child, you hid evidence, and you lied to me multiple times. Zahara's smile faded. You think I care about laws right now, about your moral speeches? Her voice sharpened like broken glass. Do you know what it feels like, Jabari? To build a life with someone and find out he has a hidden past that could destroy everything. Jabari's chest tightened. My past was before you. But the consequences weren't, Zahara snapped. Do you understand what this means for me, for our family, for our reputation? You care about reputation more than a child's life, Jabari asked. What child? Zahara spat. A mistake from your old life, a burden his mother hoped to throw at your feet. Tavio flinched as if struck. The words pierced deeper than any blow. Miremba surged forward despite her pain. Don't you dare speak about my son that way. Zahara crossed her arms unbothered. Your son, he is Jabari's son too, apparently. And you, she pointed at Miremba, were planning to use him to tear my marriage apart. Don't act innocent. I wasn't going to tear anything apart. Miremba shouted, voice raw. I came to give him a letter. That was all. Jabari turned sharply. What letter? Miremba hesitated. Her breathing hitched. I wrote it months ago, explaining everything. I wanted him to know. Not because I wanted anything from him, but because Tavio deserves to know where he comes from. Zahara scoffed. A sweet story. Tell it again for the cameras. Jabari's tone iced over. Where is the letter now? Zahara's lips curved upward. Burned. Miremba gasped, tears filling her eyes. That letter was my last hope. You had no right. I had every right, Zahara said sharply. You think I'll let you, someone he once played villager romance with, come in here and destroy my life? Jabari stepped forward, his voice trembling with controlled rage. Zahara, enough. I won't let you hurt her again. Or the boy. Zahara blinked, stunned. You're choosing them over me. Jabari drew in a deep breath, steady but unyielding. I'm choosing what is right. The words sliced through the air like a blade. Tears, hot furious, filled Zahara's eyes. After everything I've done for you, after all the years I stood by you, this is how you repay me, by protecting the woman who hid your child from you. She did what she had to, Jabari said, quiet but firm. I was the one who left, the one who broke promises. If anyone is to blame, it's me, not her. Miremba's head snapped toward him, eyes widening. For the first time since escaping captivity, she truly looked at him. The confession cracked something inside her, something she had held tightly for a decade. But Zahara wasn't moved. Oh, how noble, she sneered. Too little, too late. Because now this child, she pointed viciously at Tavio, is a threat to everything. Tavio's small body shook violently, his fingers gripping Miremba's clothes. Jabari stepped between them. Don't point at him again. Or what Zahara challenged. You'll throw me out, divorce me, destroy my life for a boy you didn't even know existed yesterday. Jabari didn't blink. If I have to. The air split in half. Zahara staggered back, as if Jabari had struck her. For the first time, real fear flickered in her expression. You wouldn't, she whispered. Jabari didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was answer enough. Zahara stared at him, eyes wide, hopelessness twisting her features, but beneath the collapse something darker churned. A storm far more dangerous than the one outside. You think you can get rid of me so easily, she whispered. You think I'll just disappear? I know everything now, Jabari. Everything. And trust me, if I go down, I won't go down alone. Jabari's voice was steel. Threats won't save you tonight. Oh, these aren't threats, Zahara said, trembling with hysteria. These are truths. You think the world will accept a bastard child, a secret affair. You're a public figure, Jabari. One scandal and everything collapses. Tavio flinched at the word bastard. Jabari's fist clenched so tightly the knuckles whitened. Miremba pulled the boy close to her chest, whispering, Don't listen. You're not what she says. That's right, Zahara said sharply. He's something worse, Jabari moved before she finished the sentence. Not to strike her, but to stand fully between her and the trembling child. Say one more word about him, he warned, voice shaking with fury, and I swear to you, Zahara, you will regret it. For the first time all night, Zahara seemed afraid. She lifted both hands, backing up a step, voice trembling. You don't understand, Jabari. I did this for us, for our marriage, for our future. No, he replied coldly. You did this out of jealousy, out of fear, out of hatred. His voice hardened. And you almost destroyed 3 lives in the process. Zahara's chest heaved. Her bravado began to crumble. So what now? She whispered. What will you do with me? Jabari lifted his head. Turn yourself in. Zahara shook her head violently. No, I won't go to prison. I can't. You'll go, Jabari said, or I'll take you myself. Her expression shattered. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, not beautiful composed tears, but messy broken ones. She collapsed against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, sobbing, mascara streaking down her face. I didn't mean to hurt her, she choked. I just wanted to talk to her. To see if she truly was who I thought. I didn't plan to take her underground. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. Maremba closed her eyes, pain washing through her features. She didn't speak. Jabari stared at Zahara, his voice quiet. Whatever your intentions were, you crossed a line you can't uncross. Zahara looked up trembling. So this is the end. Jabari didn't answer immediately. He looked at Maremba, at Tavio, at the bruises along Maremba's wrists, the terror in the boy's eyes. Then he looked back at the woman he once thought he loved. Yes, he said finally. It's over. Zahara sobbed into her hands. Jabari turned away from her, offering no comfort. He wrapped an arm around Maremba to steady her and placed a protective hand on Tavio's shoulder. Let's get you out of here, he murmured. As they moved down the corridor lantern light, guiding them back toward the world above, Maremba whispered brokenly, Jabari, what happens now? He looked at her, really looked at her, and let the truth sit between them with all its weight. And promise. Now he said softly, I make everything right. For both of you. Behind them, Zahara's sobs echoed through the dim corridor. Ahead of them, a new storm was waiting. But for the first time, they would face it together. The mansion above was silent, too silent, as Jabari guided Maremba and Tavio up the staircase from the hidden passageway. The lantern flickered against the walls, casting wavering shadows that stretched like ghosts of past decisions. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what he would do next. When they reached the top landing, Tavio squeezed his mother's hand and whispered, Mama, are you hurting? Maremba forced a small smile despite the pain etched across her face. I'll be fine, my love. Just breathe. We're together now, that's what matters. But Jabari heard the sharp tightness in her breath, saw the tremor in her fingers as she tried to stay upright. The bruises along her arms were darkening her steps unsteady. Guilt twisted inside him like a blade. He had failed her once. He would not fail her again. We need to get you medical attention, he said gently but firmly. Right now. My private doctor can be here within 15 minutes. Maremba shook her head weakly. No hospitals. Not yet. I don't want questions. I don't want Tavio frightened anymore tonight. Jabari placed a steady hand on her back. You are not a criminal, Maremba. You don't need to hide. It's Zahara who will answer for what she's done. At the mention of her name, Tavio tensed. Maremba exhaled shakily. I don't trust anything in this house right now. Not until she's gone. She's not going anywhere, Jabari said darkly. Not unless it's in handcuffs. They reached the grand hall empty now, though the echoes of Zahara's earlier hysteria seemed to cling to the walls. Musa and several other servants waited anxiously near the entrance, all of them startled to see the bruised woman leaning heavily against the billionaire. Musa stepped forward. Sir, do you need help? Jabari nodded once. Prepare the downstairs guest room immediately. Warm blankets, clean water, a first aid kit, and bring warm food, soft foods only. Yes, sir, Musa rushed off. The other servants scattered, scrambling to make the room ready. Tavio looked around with wide eyes still shaken. The mansion felt larger, colder, more dangerous than ever. He stayed glued to Maremba's side, holding her hand as though, if he let go, she might vanish again. They reached the guest room, a spacious chamber with soft, golden lighting and heavy curtains that insulated it from the storm outside. Maremba sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling with relief, as some of the weight lifted off her injured ribs. Jabari knelt beside her. Tell me everything, he said quietly. I need to understand exactly what Zahara did. Maremba tensed, glancing at Tavio. Jabari noticed immediately and softened his tone. Tavio, he said gently, why don't you sit on the sofa over there? I'll be right here. But the boy shook his head. I want to stay with Mama. Jabari hesitated. He didn't want to force distance, but Maremba laid a soft hand on Tavio's cheek. My brave boy, I need you to sit for just a moment, okay? I promise I'm not going anywhere. Tavio's eyes filled with reluctance, but he slowly walked to the sofa and curled into the corner, knees drawn to his chest. Once he settled, Jabari turned back to Maremba. She looked exhausted, but her gaze was steady. She approached me at the market, Maremba began, voice low. Her driver told me someone wanted to see me. She was very polite at first, too polite. She asked if I was from the village of Moana. When I said yes, she asked if I ever knew a young man named Jabari. She swallowed. I denied it at first. I was scared. I didn't know who she was or why she cared. But then she showed me a photo, an old one, of you, younger, wearing that same woven bracelet you once gave me. Jabari felt his heart twist. He hadn't worn that bracelet in over a decade. It was somewhere in a drawer, now hidden with the pieces of his old life. I realized she knew, Maremba whispered. She knew everything. How Jabari muttered, brows furrowing. I don't know. Maybe someone from the village came to the city and recognized you. You're a public figure now. Maybe rumors spread. Maybe someone mentioned my name without meaning harm. She shook her head. But Zahara, she didn't ask questions to understand. She asked to confirm a threat. She saw you as a threat, Jabari said bitterly. She told me, Maremba, continued, eyes glistening, that if it was true that you and I had a past, then Tavio could ruin everything you built. That the media would dig into my life, attack the child, and paint you as a dishonest snake. Jabari's throat tightened. That was a lie, a manipulation. Maremba looked down. Maybe, but she convinced me she could protect Tavio if I cooperated. Then the driver grabbed me when I tried to leave. Behind them, Tavio hugged his knees tighter, silent tears sliding down his cheeks. Jabari felt rage pulse through his veins, hot, feral, scorching. I will make her pay for this. No. Maremba lifted her hand, placing it weakly on his arm. No more violence. I don't want this to become a war. I only want safety for Tavio. Jabari swallowed, softening, but not yielding. There will be justice. I promise you that much. Before they could say more, a servant entered the room carrying warm towels and a first aid kit. Jabari took them himself. Thank you. Leave us, he ordered. When the servant left, Jabari moved slowly, carefully, wrapping Maremba's injured wrists. His touch was gentle, far gentler than she remembered from the brash young man she once knew. But she still flinched once at the pain. Sorry, he murmured. It's all right, she breathed. Silence settled briefly thick with unspoken memories. Finally, Maremba looked at him, voice soft but firm. Why did you never return, Jabari? Why didn't you at least send word, a letter, anything? The question had been waiting 12 long years. Jabari lowered his head. Because I was ashamed. She blinked. Ashamed. When I left the village, I was determined to succeed. To come back wealthy. To give you a better life than the one I grew up with. He laughed bitterly. But life didn't follow my plans. I struggled for years. Nearly lost everything. And every time I wanted to return, I told myself I wasn't ready. That I wasn't enough yet. That you deserve better. And you never thought that maybe I wasn't asking for wealth, she asked quietly, pain lacing her words. Jabari closed his eyes. I was young, stupid, and I kept telling myself I'd go back tomorrow. Then tomorrow became weeks, months, years, until I convinced myself that maybe you'd moved on or forgotten me. Maremba shook her head slowly. I never forgot. Tavio watched them from the sofa, heart pounding. As young as he was, he understood enough to know he was listening to the pieces of his own history falling into place. Jabari continued, almost choking on regret. If I had known you were carrying my child. But you didn't, she whispered. I didn't send word either. I was scared. I didn't want you to feel trapped. And by the time I thought of telling you, you were a different man. A famous man. A distant dream. Their eyes met, two lives separated by mountains of silence. Then Tavio's small voice broke through. So, you were supposed to be together, Jabari turned. We loved each other. Once. Very deeply. Maremba closed her eyes, briefly remembering. Tavio swallowed. And you really are my father. Jabari stood slowly and walked toward him. He knelt on one knee, so he could meet the boy's eyes at level. I am Jabari, said softly. If you'll have me. Tavio didn't answer right away. His eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. He searched Jabari's face with trembling uncertainty, as if afraid to believe. Maremba whispered, It's okay, my love. Tavio's lips quivered. Do you want me? Even though you didn't know me before, Jabari's heart cracked. He cupped the boy's cheek. I have wanted you from the moment I saw you tonight, even before I knew who you were. But now that I know the truth, his voice thickened. I want you more than anything. If you'll let me be your father, I won't waste a single day. Tavio burst into tears. He threw himself forward, wrapping his arms around Jabari's neck with all the strength his small body could hold. Jabari caught him, held him tightly, breathing shakily into the boy's hair. I'm so sorry, Jabari whispered. I'm so sorry. For the first time, Tavio whispered back, Papa. Maremba covered her mouth, tears pouring freely. The reunion lasted several long, trembling minutes. But the moment was cut short by hurried footsteps pounding toward the room. The door burst open, Musa breathing heavily. Sir Madam Zahara. She's gone. Jabari stood so abruptly, the lantern nearly fell. What do you mean gone? Musa stammered. She left the mansion. We don't know how. The guards at the gate say she forced her way past them. She took a car. Jabari felt the air leave his lungs, because Zahara was desperate, unstable, cornered. And a person with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous threat of all. We need to secure the house, Jabari ordered. Now. Tavio clutched his mother's arm, fear returning tenfold. Miremba whispered Jabari. What do we do? She knows everything. She won't get far, he said through clenched teeth. She's panicking. She'll make mistakes. But inside, a cold dread coiled. Zahara wasn't running to escape. She was running to strike back. And in the depths of his chest, Jabari felt a chilling certainty. Tonight's nightmare was far from over. Chaos rippled through the mansion as Musa's words settled into the air like a curse. Zahara, wounded pride, trembling, fury, and desperation wrapped tightly around her, was gone, and no one knew where she was heading. Jabari's entire body stiffened with instinctive alarm. How long ago did she leave? Just a few minutes, sir, Musa replied breathlessly. She took the black sedan. The one with the damaged taillight. Tavio flinched at the mention of the car, the same car that had taken his mother. Miremba, still weak, gripped the edge of the bed to steady herself. Jabari, if she's running, she's dangerous. She knows everything now. Everything. Jabari ran a hand down his face, tension sharpening every movement. He knew Zahara well enough to understand what she did when she felt cornered. She would not run to protect herself, she would run to protect her power, her image, her pride. And if she believed that Miremba and Tavio threatened her life as a billionaire's wife, then she might try to erase the threat. He stepped toward Musa. Lock every entrance to the mansion. Nobody comes in or out. Send men to search the entire property outside, all gardens, garages, tool sheds, perimeter walls. Zahara may be hiding somewhere close. Yes, sir. Musa sprinted out of the room, shouting orders down the hallway. Jabari turned back to Miremba, whose face had gone pale with fear. We need to keep you both safe. Zahara won't do anything rash, not yet. She still thinks she can control the narrative, but we can't take chances. Tavio slipped off the sofa and rushed to Miremba's side, taking her hand tightly. Mama, will she come back? Will she hurt us again? Miremba brushed his hair gently despite her trembling hands. No one will hurt you, my love. Jabari knelt beside them. She won't touch you, he said firmly. Not while I'm here. A knock sounded at the door. Another servant entered holding a tray of warm broth bandages and herbal ointments. Jabari took the tray gently. Thank you. Leave us. The servant bowed and left silently. Jabari set the tray down. Eat first, Miremba. You need strength. Then I'll have my doctor examine you. But Miremba pushed the bowl away. Food can wait. What matters now is what she's planning. You know Zahara better than I do. What will she do? Jabari hesitated, pinching the bridge of his nose. If she believes her position as my wife is threatened, she will try to do one of three things. Run, hide, or attack. She has chosen to run, which means attack might follow. Tavio's small voice wavered. Attack. Us. No, Jabari said quickly, though. Uncertainty churned in his stomach. She won't harm you directly. She's not violent. Miremba gave him a pointed look. She kidnapped me. Jabari stiffened. She panicked. She locked me in a hidden room, Miremba hissed. What kind of panic is that? Jabari looked away, shame creeping up his neck. I know, and she'll answer for it. I won't excuse what she did. Tavio whispered, Papa. Is she coming back for Mama? Jabari's heart lurched, not because of the question, but because the boy had called him Papa without hesitation this time. He placed a hand on Tavio's shoulder. I won't allow her near your mother again. But even as he said it, the truth unsettled him. Zahara was unraveling faster than he expected. Miremba drew in a shaky breath. Maybe she's going to the media, or the police. She might tell them lies to make me look like the villain. Jabari shook his head. She won't risk exposing herself, not after what she did tonight. A sudden thought struck Miremba. What if she's going to your lawyers, or your business partners? She could try to turn them against you. Let her try, Jabari said, voice hard. I built my empire from nothing. I don't owe anyone my truth about the past. And no one will take away my son. Tears filled Miremba's eyes, not from pain, but from something else entirely. And what about me? She whispered. Will you protect me too? Jabari met her gaze without hesitation. With my life. Silence settled between them, soft, heavy, charged with old wounds and new promises. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. Tavio jolted. What was that? Jabari stood instantly. Stay here. But Miremba grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. No, don't go alone. It could be her. It's not her, Jabari said, forcing calm into his voice. She wouldn't come back this soon, and she would never break something loudly. She's too calculated for that. Still, his pulse quickened. He gently pulled his hand free. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Musa. Miremba nodded, pulling Tavio close as the door clicked shut. Jabari strode down the hallway. The mansion was dim, lit only by a few scattered lamps. Far below, he heard panicked murmuring from the staff. When he reached the marble staircase, Musa met him halfway, face pale. Sir, the garage. What about it? A car is missing. Jabari narrowed his eyes. The black sedan. Zahara took it. Musa shook his head. Not just that one, sir. A second car is gone. One of the unregistered ones. Jabari froze. What do you mean unregistered? The one that doesn't appear in official records. The one Madame Zahara insisted on purchasing privately. She said it was for emergencies. Jabari's blood ran cold. Of course Zahara would have a contingency plan. Any tracking device? Jabari asked sharply. None, sir. She had it removed. Jabari cursed under his breath. Did anyone see her leave? No, sir. But a guard said she told him not to search her bags because it was personal. He let her pass. Jabari's eyes darkened. What bags? Musa lowered his gaze. 3 leather suitcases. 3. Not 1. Not hurried. Planned. Jabari grabbed Musa by the arm. Get the security team to check every exit camera in the estate. I want to know which direction she went. Yes, sir. Musa sprinted off. Jabari turned toward the dim hallway that led back to the guest room. The walls felt like they were closing in. Zahara wasn't panicking. She was planning her next move. And he had no idea what that move was. He reached the guest room and knocked softly. It's me. The door opened to reveal Miremba holding Tavio tightly. Both faces were pale. What happened? She asked. Zahara took another car, Jabari said. One she kept hidden. And she packed bags. Miremba's lips parted. Bags? For running. Jabari shook his head slowly, dread settling in. No. Zahara would never leave without taking something she values. Tavio whispered. What does she value? Jabari swallowed. Control, he said quietly. Image. Revenge. Miremba's breath caught. You think she'll try to hurt us? Jabari shook his head firmly. She won't get near this house. But she might try something else, Miremba whispered, trembling. Yes, Jabari admitted. She might. Tavio pressed close to his mother, voice trembling. Papa, will she come back tonight? Jabari knelt in front of him, placing both hands on the boy's shoulders. Listen to me, Tavio. No matter what happens, I will protect you and your mother. Zahara cannot harm you. Not while I'm here. And not after tonight. The boy nodded slowly, drawing strength from the certainty in Jabari's voice. But then Miremba's voice broke through, soft, scared, and threaded with a truth Jabari hadn't yet faced. Jabari, what if she isn't coming after us? She whispered. Jabari frowned. What do you mean? Miremba swallowed, hard eyes trembling. What if she's going after someone else? Someone she blames? Someone she thinks helped expose her? Jabari felt a cold chill run down his spine. Zahara wasn't stupid. She wasn't reckless. She was strategic. She was calculating. And she never attacked the obvious target first. His mind raced. Then suddenly, a horrifying realization struck him. Oh God, Jabari whispered. No. Miremba grabbed his arm. What is it? Jabari stared into the distance, dread hollowing him out. Zahara might not be coming back here, he murmured. She might be going to the village. Miremba's breath hitched. Because in the village, there were people who knew the truth. People Zahara might try to silence. People she believed helped Miremba. And worst of all, there were people she believed had betrayed her husband. Tavio gripped Jabari's sleeve. Papa, what do we do? Jabari stood, voice shaking with determination. We find her, he said, tonight, because the past was no longer the only thing at risk. The future was burning too. The moment those words left Jabari's mouth, she's going to the village, the entire room seemed to tilt. Miremba's breath hitched sharply, her hand clutching her chest, as if the very idea of Zahara reaching the village could tear the air from her lungs. Jabari, no, she whispered. She wouldn't, she couldn't. She can, Jabari said quietly. And she will. Tavio stood, frozen confusion and fear swirling in his eyes. What's in the village? Why would she go there? Miremba swallowed hard. Tavio, people there know us. They know your mother's past. They know about Jabari's early years. Zahara thinks someone told me to send that letter. She thinks someone helped me. And she's capable of punishing anyone she blames. The boy's small hands balled into fists. We have to stop her. Jabari looked at him, really looked at him, and pride surged in his chest. Despite the fear, despite everything he'd been through tonight, Tavio's first thought was protecting others. A good heart, one he didn't inherit by accident. Jabari placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. And we will, I promise. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number with trembling fingers. The call connected after barely one ring. Mr. Kande, a deep voice answered. Captain Yusuf, Jabari said. I need a patrol car sent to Mwana village immediately. No, send two. There's a woman driving a black sedan with a broken tail light. She's dangerous, unpredictable, and may attempt to intimidate or harm villagers. Yes, sir. Officers will depart now. And Captain Jabari added, no sirens, no announcements. I don't want her startled. I want her stopped. Yes, sir. Jabari ended the call. Miremba exhaled shakily, her shoulders dropping in relief, but it was short-lived. Because the truth lingered in the corners of the room like a cold, unwelcome shadow. If she gets there before the police, Miremba murmured, voice trembling, she might hurt someone. Jabari, we can't risk that. We need to go ourselves. Jabari stiffened. You're injured. You need rest. And Tavio. We're not staying behind, Miremba interrupted, surprising both men. You don't understand Zahara like I do. She won't harm strangers unless she believes they're connected to me. But she will come back for me and Tavio once she feels cornered. If we're alone here, we're vulnerable. Tavio nodded quickly. Mama's right. I don't want to stay in this house without you. Jabari hesitated. Every instinct in him screamed to keep them safe inside the mansion surrounded by guards. But Miremba's logic was solid. Zahara wasn't acting normal. She wasn't thinking rationally. She was driven by fear and jealousy, two emotions that made people unpredictable and dangerous. And if Zahara believed the village held secrets, he couldn't risk waiting. Fine, he said at last. But we're leaving with protection. He called Musa back into the room. The servant appeared breathless from running up and down the halls. Musa, Jabari instructed, bring the armored SUV around to the front entrance. And tell 2 guards to gear up. They're coming with us. Yes, sir, he disappeared down the corridor. Jabari turned back to Miremba. Can you walk? I can manage, she said, though her pale face betrayed pain. He wrapped an arm around her waist to steady her. Tavio supported her other side, determined to help, despite his small frame. As they made their way through the mansion, servants moved aside with wide, fearful eyes. Whispers followed in their wake, fear of Zahara, concern for Miremba, shock at the revelation of who Tavio truly was. But no one dared speak openly. When they reached the front entrance, the night air hit them cool heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sky mottled with low-hanging clouds. The armored SUV idled at the steps, headlights cutting through the darkness. 2 guards, Akello and Bana, stood beside it. Sir, Akello said, bowing his head. We're ready. Good, Jabari replied. He opened the back door, helping Miremba inside. Tavio climbed in right beside her, refusing to leave her side even for a second. Jabari moved to the front seat but stopped abruptly when Miremba called his name. Jabari. He turned. Her eyes were tired but fierce. Whatever happens tonight, no more secrets. No more running. Jabari held her gaze and nodded. No more. He slid into the front seat and slammed the door shut. The guards took their places, one in the passenger seat, the other in the second SUV that followed behind them. The caravan rolled forward into the night. The road to Mwana village was long and winding, cutting through stretches of forest and farmland. Raindrops clung to the windshield, blurring the world into streaks of silver and shadow. Inside the SUV, the only sounds were the low hum of the engine and Tavio's faint breathing as he leaned against Miremba's shoulder. Halfway through the journey, Jabari spoke softly without turning around. Miremba. Who in the village would Zahara suspect? Miremba exhaled. Anyone who remembered seeing us together. Anyone who knew about you leaving. Perhaps my old friend Kalinda. She was the only one who encouraged me to keep hope alive after you were gone. Jabari tensed. Then she's in danger. And the midwife, Miremba whispered. She knew about my pregnancy. She helped deliver Tavio. If Zahara finds her, Tavio's head snapped up. Midwife. Someone helped bring me into the world. Miremba stroked his cheek softly. Yes, my love. You were born in the midwife's small hut at the edge of the village. She's an old, gentle woman. She kept our secret. She risked her reputation for us. Jabari felt a rush of guilt once more For every moment of the boy's life he had missed, for every struggle Maremba had endured alone. "We'll protect her," Jabari promised. The SUV sped through the rural roads, the engine roaring like an angry beast. Lights flickered behind them, Musa's vehicle following closely. After several tense minutes, Moana Village appeared in the distance, small houses clustered together, lanterns glowing faintly in the night. The sight pulled memories from Jabari like a hand reaching into his chest. Memories of poverty, memories of hunger, memories of love. When they reached the outskirts, Jabari ordered the guards to stop the cars. "Turn off the headlights," he said. "We don't want to alert Zahara." They eased forward slowly, engines low-cutting through the shadows of sleeping huts. Then Papa Tavio whispered, pointing out the window, "What's that?" Jabari followed his gaze and felt his heart lurch. A black sedan, the one with the broken taillight, was parked on the edge of the village path. Its engine was off, but the hood was still warm, steam rising faintly into the night air. "She's here," Jabari whispered. Tavio grabbed his mother's hand tightly. "Mama, stay close." Jabari gestured silently to the guards. They nodded and spread out. He and Maremba stepped forward, slow, cautious, alert. Maremba, Jabari murmured, "Stay behind me." She squeezed his wrist. "I told you no more hiding." He didn't argue. The village was eerily quiet, as if the night itself sensed the danger creeping through its pathways. A few lanterns flickered behind windows, but most homes slept. Then a faint cry echoed from the direction of the midwife's hut. Maremba gasped. "Kalinda." Without waiting, she ran forward. Maremba, Jabari called, rushing after her. Tavio sprinted too, his fear overridden by instinct. As they rounded the corner, the scene froze them in place. The door to the midwife's hut was wide open, lantern light spilling out. Inside, Kalinda, the elderly midwife, stood trembling, her back pressed against a table. Zahara stood before her, hair, wild face streaked with tears and mascara, holding a heavy wooden stick in her shaking hands. "You told her, didn't you?" Zahara hissed. "You told Maremba to go to Jabari. You're the reason she came to the city," Kalinda sobbed. "I told her nothing. Please put it down." "You don't want to do this. I already did enough," Zahara said, voice cracking. "What's one more?" Before she could swing, a voice thundered through the hut. "Zahara." She spun around and saw Jabari. Her eyes widened. You followed me." Jabari stepped forward, voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Put down the stick." Zahara shook her head frantically. "No, you don't understand. She was going to expose us. What she knows isn't dangerous," Jabari hissed. "But what you're doing is?" Zahara turned her wild eyes toward Maremba and Tavio, now standing behind him. Her gaze fixated on Tavio. You ruined everything," she whispered, voice shaking violently. "You and your son." "My son Jabari," said sharply. Zahara flinched as if slapped. For a moment, her entire body sagged, exhausted, broken, defeated. Then she whispered, "If I can't have the life I built, then no one will." And she raised the stick, toward whom no one knew. Not yet. But in that moment, everyone understood. The line Zahara was about to cross was the one no one ever returns from. Everything seemed to happen at once, too fast for breath, too slow for mercy. Zahara's trembling arm lifted the wooden stick higher, her face twisted with anguish and chaos. The lantern light inside the hut shuddered on the cracked walls as if the whole world trembled with her. Jabari surged forward before she could swing, but Zahara stepped back, her eyes darting wildly between him, Maremba, Tavio, and the terrified midwife. Her grip tightened around the stick until her knuckles turned white. "Don't come closer," she screamed, voice cracking. "Don't take another step." Kalinda pressed herself deeper against the wall, tears streaking her wrinkled cheeks. Tavio clung to Maremba's skirt, his small body shaking. Maremba instinctively shielded him, staring at Zahara with a mixture of fear and heartbroken disbelief. Zahara, Jabari said carefully, hands raised. "Put the stick down. Nobody is going to hurt you." "Nobody except you," she spat, eyes blazing. "You hurt me more than anyone ever has. You betrayed me, you humiliated me, you threw me away for a woman you left in the dirt and a child you didn't even know existed." Her voice cracked into a sob. "How do you think that feels? To watch everything crumble because of secrets you never told me?" Jabari's voice softened. "Zahara, this isn't about secrets. This is about your choices tonight." "My choices," she laughed hysterically. "You made all the choices. You invited them into our home. You believed them over me. I believe the truth," Jabari interrupted quietly. Zahara froze, something in that statement hitting her harder than any blow, and then like a thread finally snapping, she lunged. Not toward Kalinda, not toward Jabari. She lunged toward Maremba. A shriek tore from Tavio's throat. Mama Maremba pushed Tavio behind her and braced for the blow. But Jabari intercepted Zahara mid-swing. He grabbed the wooden stick with both hands, stopping it inches from Miremba's shoulder. Zahara struggled wildly, screaming, sobbing, kicking, but Jabari held firm, muscles straining. "Stop it," he roared, voice shaking the walls. "Zahara, stop! Let go of me," Zahara cried, twisting violently. The stick slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor. But she didn't stop. She lunged toward Miremba again with her bare hands. Okello the guard rushed in from the doorway, grabbing her arms and pulling her back. She screamed like a wounded animal thrashing against him. "Let me go!" she cried, her voice hoarse and broken. "Let me go. She took everything from me. He was mine. He promised me a family." "You had one," Jabari said softly, "but you destroyed it with your fear." Zahara froze, her chest heaving. Silence fell, punctured only by her shaking breaths. Then her eyes lifted to Tavio. The child stared at her, terrified, clinging to his mother, but with a defiance she had not expected. The boy she thought she could erase. The boy she believed threatened her life. And her face crumpled. "I'm not a monster," she whispered through tears, though her voice lacked conviction. "I'm not. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to keep what was mine." Jabari stepped closer, his anger simmering, but controlled. "You can't control people like possessions. You can't cage lives out of fear." But everything was slipping, Zahara sobbed. "I saw messages, whispers, rumors, people saying you had a woman in your past, a child somewhere. And then I saw her bracelet. I knew everything was true." Her gaze flicked toward Miremba. "You came back to take him from me." Miremba shook her head slowly. "Zahara, I didn't ask to be dragged into your life. I didn't come to destroy anything. I only came to tell him the truth, my son's truth." "You ruined everything," Zahara whispered, her voice barely audible. "No," Jabari said gently. "The truth ruined nothing. Lies did." Zahara trembled under Okello's grip, tears falling onto the dusty floor. "You loved him," she said to Miremba with a bitter laugh. "You still do." Silence. Miremba didn't speak, but her eyes said enough. Zahara sagged. "Then what am I? What was I?" Jabari answered quietly. "You were my wife, my companion. But marriage is trust. And you broke that long before tonight." She closed her eyes, pain tightening her features. "So this is the end." Zahara, Jabari said softly. "You need help. Real help. What happened tonight? It isn't normal. You need someone to guide you through this." She looked up with swollen eyes. "Are you going to send me to prison?" Jabari hesitated. For kidnapping, for attempted assault, for endangering a child, she deserved punishment. But he saw the trembling fear in her eyes, fear he had seen in her childhood when she was abandoned by her own family. Zahara had many flaws, but she wasn't born cruel. She was made brittle by a lifetime of insecurity. Before he could decide, Miremba stepped forward. "What you choose," she told Jabari softly, "will define Tavio's future. He will learn how to treat people by watching the choices you make." Jabari felt those words strike something deep inside him. He turned to Zahara. "You will not go to prison tonight." Zahara sobbed with fragile relief. But he continued, "You will be held accountable. You will go with the authorities for evaluation, and after that we will speak about divorce." Zahara's breath caught. "Divorce, yes," Jabari said softly but firmly, "because trust cannot grow on this soil anymore." Zahara's knees buckled. Okello caught her before she fell. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I only wanted to keep what I had." "You lost it," Jabari murmured, "the moment you tried to take someone else's life." She broke down completely. Okello escorted her toward the door, where officers were now arriving quietly under the cover of night. Jabari watched her go with a heavy heart, not love, not regret, but a solemn sadness for what could have been. When she was gone, the hut felt lighter, quieter, but not peaceful, not yet. Miremba sank into a wooden chair, exhausted. Tavio climbed into her lap, clinging to her like a lifeline. Jabari knelt beside them. "Tavio," he said gently, brushing a tear from the boy's cheek. "You were very brave tonight." The child sniffled. "I was scared." "That's what courage is," Jabari said softly. "Doing what's right, even when you're scared." The boy hesitated. "Are we going home now?" Jabari exchanged a glance with Miremba, one full of unspoken questions, fears, and hope. "Yes," Jabari said finally. "We're going home." Miremba's brow furrowed. "To your mansion, to our future," Jabari corrected. "Wherever that leads." Miremba looked away unsure. "You can't undo the past, Jabari." "No," he whispered, "but I can build something better with the time I have left." Tavio looked between them. "Are we a family now?" Jabari's throat tightened. He reached for Miremba's hand. To his relief, her fingers curled around his. Yes, Jabari said, voice trembling but filled with truth. From today onward, outside dawn began to rise, light spilling over the village like a blessing. And for the first time in years, Jabari felt something inside him settle. Hope, a beginning. Something Maremba had once given him, and something Tavio now restored. But as the first golden rays touched their faces, no one noticed the silhouette watching from the edge of the path. A villager, a stranger, or someone with their own stake in this buried past. Whatever it was, the story wasn't finished. Not yet. Morning crept in slowly, its soft light spilling across the red clay paths of Mwana village. Birds began their early calls, and the distant bleating of goats signaled that life, as always, insisted on continuing, even after nights drenched in chaos. Jabari walked beside Maremba and Tavio, their steps steady but heavy as they left the midwife's hut. Behind them, officers carefully escorted Zahara into a police vehicle, her sobs muted, now replaced by a hollow, distant numbness. The once elegant woman seemed like an empty shell broken under the weight of her own choices. But even as relief settled over the village, a strange unease lingered. Maremba leaned on Jabari's arm as she walked, her ribs aching with every breath. Tavio clung to her waist, tired and shaken, but refusing to let go. The weight of the night's events still clung to the air, thick and suffocating. They made their way toward the two SUVs parked under a cluster of acacia trees. Akello and Bana stood nearby, scanning the area for any sign of danger. But it wasn't danger that stopped them. It was a voice, thin, elderly, but firm as stone. Jabari Kande. They all turned. The silhouette that had watched them earlier now stepped fully into the morning light. An old man, tall despite his age, with a worn walking stick in his hand and eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. His faded tunic hung loosely on his frame, but there was something commanding, a presence shaped by years of quiet authority. Maremba gasped softly. Chief Barongo, the village elder. The man who had once counseled her after she learned she was pregnant. The man who had preached forgiveness yet urged caution. The man who had always spoken of destiny in riddles. He approached slowly, his eyes never leaving Jabari. You return after 12 years, Chief Barongo said, voice gravelly. And what do you bring with you? Storms, broken hearts, and men with guns. Jabari swallowed. Chief, I never wanted. The old man raised an eyebrow. Life seldom asks what we want. It asks what we choose. Jabari bowed his head respectfully. You're right, and I've made many wrong choices. The elder huffed. That much is clear. He turned to Maremba, his expression softening. Child, are you hurt? A little, she whispered. But I'm alive. And you, he said to Tavio, bending slightly to study the boy's face. You've grown into the courage I always saw in you. Tavio's eyes widened. You knew I was different, that I had a father somewhere else. The chief rested a wrinkled hand on Tavio's small shoulder. I knew your story wasn't finished, and now I see it unfolding. Then he straightened and fixed his gaze on Jabari once more. You must listen carefully to me, he said, because what happened last night is not the end. It is merely the midpoint of a path you abandoned once already. Jabari tensed. Chief, if you're referring to my past, I'm referring. Barongo cut in sharply to the consequences of it. Maremba looked confused. Consequences? Chief Zahara is in custody. The danger is over. The old man's eyes flashed. Danger, he said softly, rarely travels alone. A shiver crawled up Jabari's spine. What are you saying? The village elder motioned for them to walk with him. Akello and Bana hesitated, but Jabari nodded for them to follow at a distance. Barongo led them down a narrow footpath behind the huts, where the rising sun cast long shadows. After several minutes, he stopped near a small shrine made of stacked stones. This place, he murmured, is where villagers come to speak their truth to the spirits. And here I will speak mine. Maremba held Tavio close. Chief Barongo continued. When you left the village, Jabari, you believed you were leaving behind only poverty and hardship. But you also left behind promises, relationships, and danger. Jabari frowned. Danger? From whom? The old man tapped his walking stick on the ground. From those who envied you. From those who felt betrayed when you rose higher than anyone expected. From those who thought you belonged to them, not to the world. Maremba's breath caught. Chief, are you talking about the Traitors Guild? Jabari stiffened. Memories flooded back, shouts of jealousy, whispered resentments the day he was forced out, because his ideas were too ambitious for poor village standards. Chief Barongo nodded. Yes, they never forgave you for leaving, and some among them believed Maremba supported your escape. Maremba blinked in shock. That's not true. I didn't even know. They didn't care about truth, the chief said. They cared about pride. And when news reached the village that you had become a wealthy man, that wounds their pride even more. Some felt humiliated, some felt wronged, some wanted answers, others wanted revenge. Jabari's hand curled into a fist. Who? Chief Barongo sighed heavily. A man named Bwana Kiro. He was once your friend. Now he is leader of the guild you left behind. He believes Maremba helped you escape their grasp. He believes she owed the village her loyalty, not her heart. And he believes she hid your child as an insult to everything they stand for. Maremba's voice was barely a whisper. No. He has been stirring anger in the village for years, the chief continued. Convincing some that Maremba abandoned tradition, that you abandoned responsibility. And when Zahara arrived a few hours ago asking questions and sowing suspicion, Kiro took it as proof of his beliefs. Jabari felt his blood run cold. Chief, are you saying Maremba is in danger? That someone else might come for her? The chief looked at him gravely. Yes. Zahara's chaos stirred buried hatred, and men like Kiro thrive on chaos. The storm last night was only the beginning. Tavio's grip tightened around his mother. Mama, I won't let anyone take you. Maremba knelt and pulled him close. Nothing will happen to me, my love. I promise. But her voice trembled. Jabari turned to the chief. What does Kiro want now? To reclaim control, Barongo replied. To prove he is stronger than you, and to make an example of Maremba for choosing her heart over the village law. Jabari's jaw clenched. If he comes near her, he won't come quietly, the chief said. Men like him never do. Jabari straightened. Then I will face him. No. The chief shook his head. You will leave. Today. Now. With Maremba and your son, the village cannot protect you. Not from the anger that Zahara's arrival awakened. Jabari hesitated, but only for a moment. He then turned to Maremba, taking her hand. We're leaving. She nodded, though. Fear lingered in her eyes. They walked back toward the SUVs, the chief trailing behind them like a silent shadow. As they reached the vehicles, Jabari opened the rear door for Maremba and Tavio. But before they could climb in, a sharp whistle cut through the air. The kind used to signal a warning or an attack. Jabari looked up. Figures stood at the edge of the village road. 5, 6, 7. Men holding wooden clubs, rusted machetes, and torches. Their leader stood at the front, broad-shouldered, fierce-eyed, wearing a tattered vest. Bwana Kiro. His voice boomed across the path. Jabari Kande. You return after abandoning us, and now you think you can take what belongs to this village. Maremba stepped behind Jabari. Tavio clutched her skirt. Jabari's voice rang out with unyielding force. Maremba belongs to no one but herself. The crowd murmured angrily. Kiro raised his machete. She owes us a debt, and you owe us blood. Jabari stepped forward. You'll get neither. Kiro smiled darkly. Then we take them both. He lifted his arm, and the mob charged. The mob surged forward like a tidal wave of fury, boots pounding the red soil, torches flaring, machetes glinting with cruel intent. Kiro's roar echoed through the morning air, and the narrow footpath that led from the heart of Moana village trembled beneath the assault. Jabari reacted instantly. Akelobana, he shouted. The two guards sprang into action, drawing batons and positioning themselves between the charging men and Maremba. Akelo grabbed a fallen branch and used it like a staff, swinging in wide defensive arcs. Bana planted his feet, shielding the vehicle with his body. Maremba pulled Tavio behind her, heart thundering so loudly she could hardly breathe. The boy clung to her, not crying, just trembling eyes wide and unblinking. Jabari stepped forward, positioning himself at the front like a human barricade. Kiro, he thundered. This is madness. Stand down. But Kiro was beyond reason. His lips curled in a snarl. You left this village to rot, Jabari. You left us with nothing while you rose to luxury. He jabbed a finger toward Maremba. And she betrayed us by carrying your seed in secret. This isn't justice, Jabari snapped. This is hatred. It is our right, Kiro roared, raising his machete as the mob closed in. The first man reached Jabari, swinging a wooden club. Jabari ducked instinctively, years of street training from his youth reawakening. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted hard, and sent him sprawling to the dirt. Another man swung down at Akelo. The guard deflected the blow with the makeshift staff, kicked the attacker in the gut, and shoved him backward. But there were too many. They kept coming. Bana threw punches with military precision, knocking down 2 men in quick succession, but a third managed to swipe a machete dangerously close to his thigh. "Sir, get them in the car," Bana shouted through gritted teeth. But the path to the SUV was closing fast. More villagers emerged from behind the huts, attracted by the shouting. Miremba's voice trembled. "Jabari, we can't fight them all. We won't," he said, scanning for an opening. "We just need to break through," where she whispered desperately. And then he spotted it, a narrow goat trail branching off the main road, steep, rocky, partially hidden by shrubbery. It led toward the forest that bordered the village. A difficult path, but one the mob wouldn't expect. Jabari grabbed Miremba's hand. "Follow me." She hesitated only a second before pulling Tavio close and running with him. "Kiro," one of the mob screamed. Their running Kiro's eyes bulged. After them, Jabari's heart hammered as they sprinted down the uneven path. Miremba stumbled once, pain shooting through her bruised ribs, but Tavio held her steady with surprising strength for a child. Behind them, Akello and Bana fought to slow the mob, buying precious seconds. "Go!" Akello yelled. "We'll hold them. Kiro must not reach them," Bana added, swinging wildly. Jabari didn't want to leave his guards, but Miremba and Tavio were priority. He called back, "We'll send help." "Hold on." The path narrowed sharply, forcing them to move single file. Branches scratched at their clothes, thorns snagged on Miremba's skirt, and stones shifted dangerously underfoot. "Kiro won't give up," Miremba panted. "He'll track us." "He'll try," Jabari said, scanning the terrain. "But he doesn't know these woods like I do. I grew up here." Tavio looked up at him breathless. "Papa, are we going to die?" The question hit Jabari harder than any blow. He slowed briefly, touching the boy's cheek with a steady hand. "No, Tavio, I won't let anything happen to you. Not today, not ever." Tavio nodded, swallowing his fear, eyes shining with trust. Behind them came the furious shouts of the mob. "There, don't let them escape. Cut them off," Jabari urged them onward. Faster, the forest thickened. The branches overhead formed a dark canopy, dimming the early light. Birds scattered as they ran. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, then another. The mob was spreading out. "They're surrounding the forest," Miremba whispered, panic rising. "They don't know the land," Jabari repeated. "But we do." Or at least he hoped he still remembered. The path twisted sharply downhill. Jabari caught Miremba as her foot slipped. Her face contorted in pain. "Miremba, can you keep going?" "Yes," she gasped. For Tavio, yes. He admired her more in that moment than ever. Strength wasn't loud or violent, it was this, a mother running on broken ribs in sheer love. At the bottom of the path, they reached a dried riverbed wide, filled with scattered stones and dust. It provided better footing, but it was exposed. "We'll be visible here," Miremba warned. "That's the point," Jabari said. "We'll fake our direction." He knelt, drawing a long line in the dust with his shoe angled west. Footprints disturbed only on one side. "Come on," he urged. "Into the trees. Move quietly." They slipped into the dense underbrush opposite the direction of the false trail. Tavio pressed close to his mother, careful not to snap twigs. Jabari guided them deeper, until they reached a fallen tree trunk large enough to hide behind. "Stay low," he whispered. Footsteps soon thundered past. There, they went west, spread out. The mob chased the false trail, shouting and cursing. Jabari watched through a gap in the leaves as Kiro himself examined the marks. "Fresh," he muttered. "They're close." "Keep going." The crowd rushed after him like angry bees. When the last man disappeared, Jabari released a slow breath. "They fell for it," he whispered. "We have to move before they realize." Miremba's voice wavered. "But where the forest is huge." "To the northern edge," Jabari replied. "There's an old ranger station. Abandoned but sturdy. We can regroup there." They moved swiftly but carefully, weaving between trees, avoiding open ground. The forest thickened until they could barely see more than a few meters ahead. "We're almost." A twig snapped behind them. Jabari whirled. A lone figure emerged through the trees. Not Kiro, not a villager. Akello. His uniform was torn and blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but he was alive. "Sir," he gasped. "We held them off, but they overwhelmed Bana. I barely escaped." Jabari's heart sank. "Is he?" "I don't know," Akello said, jaw clenched. They dragged him back toward the village. Miremba covered her mouth in horror. "Oh no!" Tavio's eyes widened. "We have to save him, we will," Jabari promised. "But first we must get you both safe." Akello nodded. "We have minutes at best. Kiro will realize the trail was fake." They resumed their trek northward. Miremba's strength waned with every step, and twice she nearly collapsed. Jabari lifted her into his arms despite her weak protest. "Jabari, I can walk. You've walked enough for a lifetime," he said gently. "Let me carry you now." Tavio trudged beside them, determined, refusing to slow down. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, through the trees, a structure emerged, a dilapidated wooden cabin overgrown with vines, yet still standing. "The ranger station," Akello confirmed. "We can barricade inside." Jabari hurried forward, kicking open the door. Inside were dusty shelves, broken chairs, and an old metal stove. But the walls were solid. He laid Miremba gently on a pile of old sacks. "Tavio," she whispered, "come here." He knelt beside her, holding her hand tightly. "Mama, are you okay?" She forced a smile. "I will be." Jabari turned to Akello. "Help me block the doors and windows." Together they shoved a heavy cabinet against the front door, wedged wooden planks under the window frames, and stacked crates in front of the gaps. But before they could finish fortifying the last window, a deep horn sounded in the forest. 1 blast. 2. 3. Akello's face paled. That's their signal. They found the false trail's end. They're doubling back. Jabari's pulse quickened. He looked at Miremba and Tavio, his family. "We're safe here," he said firmly. "This cabin is strong. They won't break through easily." But even as he said it, footsteps rustled in the distance. Multiple, fast, close. Akello gripped his baton. "Sir, they're surrounding us." Miremba clutched Tavio, drawing him against her chest. Jabari stepped in front of them, jaw-clenched eyes burning with fierce determination. "They want to fight," he murmured. "They'll have to go through me first." Outside, Kiro's voice bellowed through the trees. "Jabari, Kendi, come out." The cabin trembled with the pounding of fists and weapons, but Jabari stood tall, refusing to move. This time he wasn't running. He wasn't abandoning anyone. He was ready to face his past. And this time, he had everything to lose. The first blow hit the wooden cabin door with a thunderous crack, sending dust falling from the ceiling beams. Miremba flinched, pulling Tavio closer to her chest as they huddled behind a stack of crates. Jabari stood firm near the barricaded doorway, fists clenched, muscles locked in readiness. Akello positioned himself beside the window batten, raised, listening to the rustling chaos outside. Another heavy strike followed, this time accompanied by a roar from the mob. "Open this door." Kiro's voice bellowed. "Face us, Jabari, you cannot hide behind walls forever." Jabari glanced back at Miremba, and Tavio, fear etched across their faces. He turned to Akello. "There are too many," Akello murmured grimly. "This place won't hold long. It only needs to hold long enough for us to think," Jabari said through gritted teeth. A series of rapid thuds rattled the door. Wooden splinters flew inward. The villagers were using the blunt ends of machetes, clubs, stones, anything they could find. "We shouldn't have left the road," Miremba whispered. "We should have stayed in the car." "We could have driven away," no, Jabari said firmly. "If we stayed on the main road, they would have boxed us in. Here at least we control the entrances." Another boom struck the cabin, shaking the structure. Dust rained down like ash. Tavio trembled violently. "Papa, I'm scared." Jabari's heart clenched. He knelt, placing both hands on the boy's small shoulders. "Listen to me, Tavio. Right now we need courage. Not loud bravery, quiet courage. The kind where you hold on even when everything feels impossible." Tavio swallowed hard. "I'll try. That's all I ask." Jabari said softly, then stood and turned back toward the door. Outside, Kiro continued shouting, "You took from us! You left us behind! And now you return acting like a hero." "There is no hero here, only a coward hiding behind guards," Akello muttered. "He's trying to provoke you. He won't succeed," Jabari replied, though his jaw twitched with restrained fury. A voice echoed from farther away, a woman's voice, shrill and panicked. "Stop this! Stop it at once!" It was Chief Barongo. Jabari felt a brief flicker of hope until he heard Kiro's response. "Stay out of this, old man. You lost your authority years ago." "I have not lost my wisdom," the chief shot back. "And I warn you, all of you, violence will only bring doom to this village." His warning was answered with mocking laughter. The mob struck the cabin door again. Another crack ran down the wood. Akello looked at Jabari. "Sir, it won't last." "I know," Jabari said. He scanned the cabin interior. The windows were barricaded but not reinforced enough. The back door, small, partially hidden, was nailed shut but old. Too old. "We need to prepare a strategy," Jabari murmured. Akello nodded. "Escape through the forest. They'll expect that," Jabari said. "Kiro will have men circling the area. Fight our way out. We're outnumbered 10-1. "What then?" Akello asked. Jabari inhaled deeply. We buy time. We delay them until help arrives. Help, Akello frowned, from who before Jabari could answer the cabin door gave another violent shudder. Tavio screamed. Maremba covered him with her body. Jabari, please, there must be another way. Jabari rushed to her side, lifting her chin gently. Look at me. Her eyes were wet with fear. I will not let them touch you, he vowed. Or Tavio, how she whispered. There are so many of them. A heavy silence hung before Jabari answered. Because help is already on the way. Outside the cabin, hidden by the trees, a pair of headlights flickered in the distance, approaching rapidly on the uneven forest path. Captain Yusuf's patrol convoy. Earlier, when Jabari had spoken to the captain, he had given a final instruction before the call ended. Dispatch more units if I don't contact you within 30 minutes. And 30 minutes had passed. Inside the cabin, Jabari turned to Akello. Hold the door a little longer. Akello nodded, repositioning his stance. The pounding intensified, more hands, more fury, more determination. Then Kiro's voice rose above the rest. Break it down! The door buckled inward. A wooden plank snapped. Tavio's sob turned into a terrified wail. Maremba pressed her cheek to his hair. We're here. We're together. Stay with me, my love. Jabari moved to the door, helping Akello push the cabinet harder against it. But the mob kept striking, their rage fueled by years of bitterness and Zahara's poisonous words. They won't stop, Akello said. They'll break through in minutes. Jabari nodded grimly. Then we'll make minutes enough. A shadow fell over the splintering doorway. Kiro's face appeared through a crack, wild, victorious, foaming with hatred. You can't outrun your past, Jabari, he snarled. And you cannot steal what belongs to the village. Jabari stepped into view, gripping the remaining pieces of the door with defiance. People are not possessions, Kiro. Maremba is not yours. And my son is not your village's property. Kiro's expression twisted. Your son, the boy you abandoned without knowing, the boy she lied about to protect you. Jabari met his gaze without blinking. He is mine, my flesh, my blood, and you will not touch him. Kiro's rage erupted. Get the door down. The mob surged again, their collective force shaking the cabin to its bones. Inside, Maremba prayed silently, tears streaking down her cheeks. Tavio buried his face against her shoulder, breathing fast and shallow. Jabari braced himself. Another strike, another, and then voices. But not from the mob, from the forest beyond, shouting, commanding, authoritative. Paulus dropped. Your weapons, a dozen bright flashlights cut through the trees like spears of light. Then, chaos. The mob broke in confusion, torches falling to the ground as officers swarmed in with shields raised. Screams erupted, machetes clattered to the dirt, men scattered in panic. Don't move, drop it now, on your knees. Jabari exhaled sharply, relief flooding him. They're here, he whispered. Akello sagged against the door, panting. Maremba trembled with relief, hugging Tavio tighter. Thank God. Thank God. The cabin door splintered once more, not from the mob this time, but from a police boot kicking it inward. Captain Yusuf appeared, gun-drawn eyes fierce with urgency. Mr. Conde, are you hurt? No, Jabari replied, helping Maremba stand. But we need medical attention and arrests. You'll have both, Yusuf said. We already have Kiro in custody. Jabari froze. Kiro, yes, Yusuf said. He resisted arrest. He's being transported now. Maremba let out a shaky breath. It's over, for now, the captain replied. But we'll station officers around the estate and keep the village under watch until we've detained every member of that mob. Outside, handcuffed men knelt under flashlight beams. The forest echoed with the sounds of an operation under control. Akello gently guided Maremba and Tavio outside. Jabari followed, his hand firmly on the boy's shoulder. As they stepped into the early morning light, Tavio whispered, Papa, you saved us. Jabari looked down at him, eyes softening. No, Tavio. We saved each other. Maremba reached out, lacing her fingers through his. For the first time in years, Jabari felt the weight of the past begin to lift from his shoulders. But in the tangled forest behind them, unseen by all, a pair of eyes watched silently. Not Kiro's, not Zahara's. Someone else. Someone who knew the shadows of Moana village far too well. And someone who had no intention of letting the past rest. Because the story wasn't done. Not while secrets still lay buried beneath the red earth. The sun had fully crested over the horizon by the time Captain Yusuf's men secured the last of the mob. The forest moments ago, alive with shouting and violence, now lay eerily quiet. Birds resumed their hesitant morning calls. Leaves rustled softly in the returning breeze. But beneath that fragile peace simmered the stark aftermath of fear and fury. Jabari walked with one arm wrapped protectively around Tavio, the other steadying Miremba, as they made their way toward the police convoy. Miremba leaned heavily on him, her ribs ached, her body exhausted, but her spirit refused to break. Tavio clutched her hand tightly, unwilling to let go even for a second. Okello limped slightly behind them, battered but alive. Relief flickered across his face when he saw additional reinforcements arriving through the trees. Yet every few steps he glanced back into the forest uneasy. Jabari noticed, "You're looking for someone." Okello hesitated. "Sir, during the fight before the mob overwhelmed us, I saw someone. Not a villager, not part of Kiro's group." Jabari frowned. "Who I don't know. Tall, hooded, watching." Okello lowered his voice, and when the chaos broke out, he slipped deeper into the forest. Jabari stiffened. One of Kiro's allies, No Okello, said firmly. This was different. He didn't move like the others. He was calm, observing. Miremba overheard and froze. The color drained from her face. "A hooded man." In the forest, Okello nodded. A cold shiver crawled down her spine. Jabari moved closer to her. "Miremba, do you know something?" She hesitated. Pain flickered in her eyes, not the physical kind, but the haunted kind that only memories could cause. "Years ago, after you left the village," she whispered, "there was someone who began asking questions about you. About us. About my pregnancy. He wasn't from the village either. No one knew who he was. But he asked too much, watched too closely. He appeared and disappeared like a shadow. Some villagers said he was a debt collector. Others said he was a hired man." Jabari's breath hitched. "Hired? To do what?" "To make sure you never returned," she said softly. "To make sure no one from the village reached you with the truth." Tavio looked between them, confused. "Someone didn't want Papa to know about me," Miremba cupped his cheek. "Some people feared what would happen if Jabari came back rich. Some wanted control, and control needs secrets," Okello muttered. "This man could be connected to that." Jabari squeezed Miremba's hand. "We won't let ghosts from the past threaten us again. Not him, not Kiro, not anyone." But even as he said it, unease lingered. Before more could be said, Captain Yusuf approached, wiping sweat from his brow. "Mr. Conde, he reported your former wife Zahara, has been taken to the city authorities. She will undergo a mental health evaluation before charges are formally processed." Miremba closed her eyes briefly, silently thanking fate that Zahara's rage had been stopped before it escalated further. "Thank you, Captain," Jabari said. "You'll all need to come with us to the station for statements," Yusuf continued. "But first, medical attention. Especially for her." His gaze settled gently on Miremba's bruised face. Jabari nodded. "She's our priority." But as they approached the convoy of police vehicles, the villagers, those not part of the mob, the innocent ones who had watched in horror, began to gather along the outskirts of the forest path. Some whispered, some cried. Some stared at Miremba with shame, guilt, or lingering resentment. But one stepped forward, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and trembling hands. She wore a faded blue wrap and carried a basket of herbs. "Miremba," she said softly. "My child." Miremba gasped. Mama Zuena, the herbalist who had helped raise her after her parents died. Zuena approached slowly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I am so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have warned you about Kiro's growing anger. I should have." Miremba shook her head, voice gentle. "You didn't know. None of us did. But I saw signs," Zuena whispered brokenly, "and I stayed silent." Jabari stepped forward respectfully. "You are not to blame. Kiro manipulated fear. People like him thrive in shadows." Zuena nodded, though guilt remained etched across her features. Her gaze shifted suddenly, landing on Tavio. "Oh my," she whispered. "He looks so much like you, Jabari." The boy blushed and hid his face behind his mother. Miremba smiled weakly. "He is kind like his father, too." For the first time, Jabari saw pride flicker in Miremba's eyes when she looked at him, and it hit him like a wave. Someone had once loved him deeply. Someone had once believed in the man he could become long before he achieved anything. Someone had carried his son, raised him, protected him alone for years, and he had missed it all. Regret threatened to choke him, but he swallowed it. Regret would not fix the past, only action would. Suddenly, Tavio tugged at Jabari's sleeve. "Papa, are we going home now?" "To your mansion." Jabari knelt in front of him. "Do you want to?" Tavio hesitated. "Will Mama come too?" Maremba and Jabari exchanged a glance, fragile, hesitant, hopeful. That depends on her, Jabari answered softly. But wherever she goes, I'll make sure you're both safe. Tavio nodded and pressed his forehead against Jabari's. I want to go with you. I want us to be together. Jabari closed his eyes tightly. We will be. I promise. A promise. One he intended to keep this time. Captain Yusuf cleared his throat. It's time. We'll escort you out of the village. And don't worry, no one will follow you. Jabari lifted Maremba gently into the back seat of the SUV. Tavio climbed in beside her, refusing to let go of her hand. As Jabari closed the door, Chief Barongo stepped forward, leaning heavily on his staff. Jabari, he said with a gravity that silenced everyone nearby, you have faced your past today. But remember this, a man does not become strong by wealth or status. He becomes strong when he protects what matters. Jabari bowed his head with respect. Thank you, Chief. I won't forget. And one more thing, the Chief added, eyes narrowing with concern. Be watchful. The hooded man Akello saw. I have seen him before. Jabari's breath caught, where the elder's voice dropped to a whisper. Years ago, when Maremba gave birth, he came asking questions. I sent him away. But he did not look like a man who accepts defeat. Jabari felt a chill run down his spine. Not Zahara, not Kiro, not jealousy, not abandonment. Something else, something older had been lurking on the edges of their story all along. Do you know his name? Jabari asked. Chief Barongo shook his head slowly. Only his title. Jabari's heart thumped hard. What title? The chief's voice was barely audible. They called him the Collector. A silence heavier than stone fell over the forest. But the moment broke when a branch snapped somewhere in the depths of the woods. Jabari and Akello turned sharply toward the sound. Nothing. Just the rustle of leaves. But the unease remained. They climbed into the SUV, doors slammed shut, and the convoy started rolling out of the forest path, leaving behind the shattered remains of the night, the frightened villagers in the lingering shadow of someone who should not exist. As the vehicles pulled away, Maremba leaned her head on Jabari's shoulder. Is it over? She asked softly. He wrapped an arm around her. No, he murmured, but we're together now. And whatever comes next, we'll face it. Tavio snuggled closer to them both. For the first time since the storm began, the three of them felt like a family. But from deep within the trees, unseen by anyone, a hooded figure turned and walked silently in the opposite direction, as if beginning a hunt that had been paused but never ended. The road back to the city wound like a serpent through the hills, its narrow curves still slick from the morning dew. The police convoy moved cautiously, engines humming in steady rhythm. Inside the lead SUV, Jabari held Maremba close as she rested her head against his shoulder. Her breathing was shallow, labored her ribs clearly in pain, but her hand never loosened from Tavio's small fingers. Tavio had finally fallen asleep, exhaustion weighing down his eyelids until they fluttered shut. His cheek pressed softly against his mother's arm. Every few minutes, Maremba checked him with trembling fingertips, as if reassuring herself that he was real. Safe. Alive. Jabari couldn't stop looking at them. Every time he glanced down, a fierce protective warmth surged in his chest, mixed with guilt sharp enough to bleed him from the inside. If I had known, if I had come back sooner. But the past could no longer be changed. Only the present and the future remained. Akello rode up front beside the driver, head turned slightly as he kept scanning the road ahead and behind. His bandaged forehead throbbed, but he remained alert, loyal, unwavering. Despite the quiet inside the SUV, Jabari's mind was far from calm. Captain Yusuf's words replayed over and over. The hooded man left before we arrived. My men found tracks, deep ones, fresh. The Collector, a man without a name, a man who had watched the village for years, a man who had followed Maremba's story, a man who had returned the same night Zahara fled, but for what the SUV jolted slightly over a bump, pulling Jabari from his thoughts. Are you all right? He murmured to Maremba. She smiled faintly. A little sore, but I'll live. You'll do more than live, he said firmly. You'll heal, you'll rest, you'll be protected. Maremba lifted her gaze to him, her brown eyes soft but searching. Protected or controlled? Jabari winced. Protected. I promise you, I will never cage you like Zahara tried to. I will never take away your choices. She studied him quietly for a few seconds. People change, Jabari. You have changed, I see it. But life taught me long ago not to give my trust blindly. You shouldn't, he said. Trust must be earned. She squeezed his hand gently. Then start earning it with honesty. He nodded. Ask me anything. She took a careful breath. If the truth had reached you years ago, if you had known about Tavio, would you have come back? Jabari's chest tightened. Yes, he whispered. I would have come running. I would have turned the world upside down to stand beside you both. Even if you were still poor, she asked. He exhaled shakily. Especially then. Miremba's lips parted slightly. The truth in his voice pierced her deeper than she expected, bringing a sheen of tears to her eyes. Tavio stirred lightly, shifting closer between them. Jabari brushed the boy's hair with trembling fingers. I will not lose a single moment more. The road dipped gently into lower terrain when Okello suddenly stiffened. Sir, he said sharply, a vehicle approaching from behind. Jabari leaned forward to look through the front mirror. A dark shape moved swiftly in the distance. Too swiftly. The police escort behind them sharpened their formation. Captain Yusuf's voice crackled through the radio. Lead vehicle maintains speed. We've got a tail. Jabari's heart thudded. Who unknown, Yusuf answered. But they're gaining. Miremba's hand gripped his arm tightly. Is it him? Jabari's blood ran cold. It could be anyone, he said, trying to reassure her. Stay calm. But inside, he wasn't calm at all. The SUV behind them edged closer until its grille gleamed through the dust. Captain Yusuf barked orders. Don't let them approach the civilians. Block them. One of the police trucks swerved between the mystery vehicle and Jabari's SUV, forcing the other driver to slow, but the dark car jerked right, cutting into the shrub-lined shoulder, kicking up dirt as it barreled forward. They're trying to bypass us, Okello shouted. The police truck accelerated to intercept, forcing the driver back onto the main road. Miremba clutched Tavio tighter. What do they want? Why are they following us? Jabari stared hard at the approaching car. If it's who we fear, they're not after us. Miremba blinked. Then who? Jabari's voice lowered. Tavio. Her breath caught like a punch to the ribs. No. Why him? Tavio is the heir to everything I built, Jabari said quietly. If someone wants power, or leverage, or revenge, they will target what I care about most. Fear widened her eyes. She wrapped her arms around her son, protectively shielding his sleeping form. I won't let anyone touch him, Jabari whispered fiercely. The road narrowed sharply ahead, curving around a rocky hillside. A dangerous point. A blind spot. Captain Yusuf's voice crackled over the radio again. Lead vehicle, prepare. If they strike, it'll be here. Jabari braced himself. Okello, get ready. But Okello was already leaning halfway out the window, one hand gripping the frame, eyes locked on the tailing car. The moment they reached the curve, everything erupted. The unknown vehicle lurched forward, engine roaring like an animal unleashed. It rammed straight into the police truck, blocking it metal, screeching against metal. The police vehicle swerved violently, but held its ground. But the attacker recovered fast, much faster than any untrained driver could. This is no villager, Okello hissed. This is a professional. The attacking car swiped left, maneuvered sharply, then lunged again, this time toward the SUV, carrying Jabari, Miremba, and the boy. No, Miremba cried. Jabari grabbed the handlebars on the seat in front of him, shouting at the driver. Hold steady. The SUV jerked hard toward the right, dodging the incoming strike by inches. The attacker spun out, dust flying, then realigned with terrifying precision. They're coming again, Okello warned. Jabari looked at Miremba, her face pale, eyes wide with terror, and then at Tavio's small sleeping form cradled in her arms. Fire ignited in his chest. He turned to the driver. Lose them, now. The driver nodded, pressing hard on the accelerator. The SUV surged forward with a powerful roar. Tires bit into the dirt. Pebbles launched into the air. The convoy sped down the twisting slope, but the attacker kept up, relentless. The police truck tried to block them again, but this time, the attacker swung around and rammed the vehicle's side, sending it skidding toward a ditch. Captain Yusuf shouted commands, voices overlapping in chaos. Jabari clenched his fists. They're not stopping. Then Tavio stirred awake. Papa, he murmured sleepily. What's happening? Jabari scooped him into his arms, pressing the boy's head against his chest. It's okay. Stay down. Don't look. Miremba held onto them both, trembling uncontrollably. The SUV banked sharply through another turn. The attacker's vehicle followed, headlights flashing, grills snarling as it closed in. Until a second police truck roared into view from the opposite curve, coming straight toward the attacker like a charging beast. The mysterious driver slammed the brakes. Not fast enough. Crash metal collided with brutal force. The impact jolted through the entire hillside. Birds scattered in all directions. The attacker's vehicle spun flipping twice before slamming into a boulder with a violent crunch. Silence followed thick and heavy. Captain Yusuf's voice finally broke through the radio. Suspect down. Repeat, suspect down. Secure the perimeter. Okello exhaled slowly. Sir, I think that's over. Jabari held Miremba and Tavio tightly. No, it's not. Because the attacker hadn't been wearing a villager's rags, nor Zahara's perfume, nor Kiro's insignia. Captain Yusuf approached the wreck with caution. Then his voice crackled over the radio again, low shaken, rattled. Mr. Conde, you need to see this. Jabari tensed. What is it? The driver Yusuf said. He's alive. Barely, but his hoodie fell off. Miremba gasped. Jabari's pulse pounded in his ears. Yusuf continued, voice trembling. It's him, the one you warned me about. Okello's eyes widened. The collector Yusuf's next words chilled the air. He has something carved into his arm. A mark. Jabari hesitated. What mark? Yusuf answered quietly. The letter K, crossed over by a knife. Miremba pressed a hand over her mouth. Kiro's guild. The collector. The men who believe they own the village's future. Sir, Yusuf continued, there's a message carved into the dashboard. It's addressed to you. Jabari swallowed. What does it say? Captain Yusuf read slowly. Blood returns to where it once belonged. Miremba trembled violently. Tavio buried himself deeper into Jabari's arms. Jabari exhaled shakily, staring out over the road ahead. The morning sun had risen, but a darker shadow had begun to follow them. Slowly, silently, purposefully. The past wasn't just haunting him. It was coming. For all of them. Life's greatest battles are not always fought with fists or weapons. They are fought with truth, courage, and the willingness to face the past we once ran from. Jabari learned that no amount of success can silence unresolved history, and no amount of wealth can buy back lost time. But he also discovered something far stronger, the power of choosing differently when given a second chance. Family, love, and honesty are fragile threads, yet when protected, they become unbreakable. No parent should ever fear losing their child, and no child should ever question whether they are wanted. When we finally confront the shadows behind us, we free the path ahead for those we love. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? And if you enjoy powerful African folktale dramas, feel free to subscribe. Your support helps keep these stories alive.